Pray, hope, and don't worry. A celebration of Padre Pio. On the 23rd of May, Pope John Paul came to pray and pay homage at the tomb of a man who has been called the greatest mystic of our century. A man who followed in the steps of St. Francis of Assisi, with whom he shared a nationality, a name, and a faith, and with whom he will perhaps share infinitely more. Because the man buried here surely deserved to join St. Francis in the company of saints. The Holy Father had come here to San Giovanni Rotondo twice before. He came when he was a simple priest from Rome and as a cardinal from Krakow. Today, he comes as Christ's vicar on earth. Padre Pio, baptized Francesco, shared one great mystical phenomenon with St. Francis of Assisi, the stigmata. The image of Christ in his passion, his bleeding body bearing the 5 wounds, his head lacerated by the crown of thorns. The 5 wounds, collectively known as the stigmata, have, on very rare occasions, appeared on the bodies of living people, and the Catholic Church has acknowledged previous manifestations of this kind. However, very few men have suffered the agony of the stigmata in the complete form of the 5 wounds, in the hands, the feet, and the side. The first was St. Francis of Assisi, and nearly 700 years later, the same wounds were borne by Padre Pio, the first priest to receive the wounds of Christ on the cross. Here, in the village of Pietrelcina, in the rugged south of Italy, he came into the world on May the 25th, 1887, in this small house. His parents, Grazio and Maria Forgione, had married in the nearby church of St. Anne. And it was here, in this church, that their son Francesco experienced one of his earliest direct encounters with God. As a child of 5, he had begun to experience ecstasies and also assaults from the devil. On one occasion, while quietly at prayer in St. Anne's, he had a vision of the Sacred Heart. He had already decided to offer his life to God and said that at that moment he felt hands upon his head, indicating that his offer had been accepted. One day, before setting off for America to find work in order to feed and educate his family, his father took him to a local shrine of St. Pellegrino. And there they witnessed a profoundly moving incident. The mother of a badly deformed child hurled her infant onto the altar, crying, "If you cannot heal him, you must keep him." The child sat up and ran to his mother's arms, completely healed. Grazio Forgione wanted to hurry his son away, but Francesco remained praying. Francesco Forgione began his religious training at Morcone and also attended several other Franciscan novitiates. He was ordained in the year 1910 when he was 23 years old in the Cathedral of Benevento. The young friar was often ill, He slipped into states of ecstasy which alarmed and worried his superiors. He fasted to extremes. He was subject to alarming temperatures, which were so high it is said they broke the thermometer. Concerned about his health, puzzled by his fevers, trances, and visions, the friars sent him back to his own village of Pietrelcina. He spent countless hours in this squat tower, the torretta, which his family owned, studying, praying, and in meditation. Sometimes he distanced himself for days and nights, staying in this lonely farm building in the midst of the countryside. Perhaps this long period of isolation from the life he had most hoped for was a preparation for the extraordinary years to follow. In September 1910, he had already begun to experience inexplicable pains in his hands. A year later, the young man wrote to his superior, Padre Benedetto, "Yesterday evening something happened which I can neither explain nor understand. In the center of the palms of my hands, a red patch appeared, accompanied by a sharp pain. I also feel some pain in the soles of my feet." Knowing full well what these pains foretold, he begged God to spare him the embarrassment, though not the pain, of the wounds. Apart from a brief spell in the Italian army in 1915, from which he was soon invalided out, he remained at his birthplace, Pietrelcina, where the villagers had now erected a small chapel, enclosing the tree under which he had first felt the pains of the stigmata. But in 1916, in the hope that the change of climate would cure his acute chest trouble, he was sent to the isolated and inaccessible Franciscan friary at San Giovanni Rotondo, a town of no interest then, a place of eager pilgrimage now. The early intimations of suffering were shortly to become something much more. Padre Pio was soon to suffer pains that he would gladly endure, but a notoriety that he found hard to live with. The full and terrifying appearance of the stigmata occurred on the morning of September the 20th, 1918. Padre Pio was in the choir of the old church in San Giovanni Rotondo, having celebrated Mass. He described what happened thus. "I yielded to a drowsiness, similar to a sweet sleep, and during this I saw a mysterious person. His hands and feet and side were dripping with blood. This sight terrified me. The vision slowly disappeared, and I became aware that my hands, my feet, and my side were also dripping with blood." Padre Pio was 31 years old. Father Alessio